going to take us through the paper. Thank you.
Morning, conveners. This report presents the Council's mainstreaming, equality, diversity and human rights refreshed outcomes for 2025 to 29. The report also provides employee data related to equality and diversity and the Council's equal pay statement, all of which are required to be published under the Equality Act 2010 and related public sector duties. Since 2012, Clackmannanshire Council has published refreshed outcomes on mainstreaming equalities and diversity every 4 years, with these published on the Council's website, ensuring the Council is meeting its duties under the Equality Act. The Act requires public authorities to pay due regard to the need to eliminate unlawful discrimination, victimisation and harassment, advance equality of opportunity and foster good relations between those with a protected characteristic and those with not. These requirements apply across the 9 protected characteristics. Additional specific duties introduced under the Act require listed public bodies to prepare and publish information as part of their mainstreaming equalities responsibilities. In developing the refreshed outcomes, a review of progress made against the 21-25 outcomes and associated actions was carried out, as well as desk research to ensure alignment with key Council strategies, policies and plans. A review of data held by the Council on equalities matters and published Equality and Fairer Scotland impact assessments was also carried out to identify areas for improvement. And a period of engagement was also undertaken during the summer months with representative organisations with a specific interest in supporting equalities groups, and feedback from them incorporated into the final refreshed outcomes. 4 refreshed outcomes have been developed and associated actions, which is provided in the main report at Appendix 1. Employee data and the Council's statement of equal pay is also provided. Council is asked to note that the draft equalities outcomes are currently published on our website to meet statutory deadlines, and this will be replaced with a final version of the refreshed outcomes if agreed today, and I'm happy to take any questions on the report.
Thanks, Sheree. Do we have any questions on the paper? Councillor Coyne?
Thanks, Commissioner. Sheree, just as a sort of general overall thing, do you get many complaints on a DIE basis in a year?
There are complaints that come through. I think they tend to be around access to information or services. I probably couldn't give you, firm numbers, but we do break them down in terms of some of the categories for complaints reporting. So when the complaint reports come back to audit and scrutiny, there should be a basis on where there would be an equalities issue. There tends to be around information and accessing services.
So this is people saying they can't access things, so rather than them being discriminated against. Kind of what I was getting at, I suppose, underlying it was, is there any evidence of any discrimination in our operation?
Potentially there is, but I wouldn't probably be comfortable giving a firm answer on that without reviewing the complaints data. But discrimination is a term that's used in complaints against maybe a service provision, whether or not that, once investigated, evidence is discrimination, I wouldn't be comfortable in commenting on. I would imagine that probably relates to, services such as social work, education and housing, where there may be a perception of discrimination without maybe a proven discriminatory element.
I suppose that's kind of an important part of the question. It's not just the number of complaints, as we always ask in order to, yeah, but how many held? So it's really to know, and maybe my question shouldn't have been how many complaints were, but what number of cases were upheld? Were there areas where you had to act to clamp down on things?
I'm not aware of any.
Good. My second question is a little bit more trivial. It was on it was on the statistical data. Let's find it. To do with marriages, funnily enough, it's page 225. And I was just looking at the tracking of employee marital status and looking at the 2021 to 2022 jump, or rather the opposite of a jump, was a drop off a cliff, just about 40.9 to 15.7%. Then I noticed that above that a figure had appeared from nowhere, which is the civil partnerships. So I look backwards, civil partnerships have been at extremely low levels, and suddenly they jump up from almost nothing to 40%. That's kind of an odd thing to happen. Were we not recording it properly in the past, or has there been some sort of revolution in the demographics?
So if I could clarify, is it the figure between 21 and 22 on civil partnerships?
Yeah.
Rising from a number of 16 to a number of 19?
I think the percentage figure. It's worked out the wrong way.
Can I come back in? Can I withdraw the question on the basis of triviality?
Thank you. Councillor Rennie?
On page 223 and 224, so it's really encouraging to see actually that it's been recorded now about employees with a disability, whereas in previous years it wasn't. And it's also positive to see a slight improvement in the level of disabled people who are now working in the council, but it's really obvious to see that there's still 92% of people who don't have a disability within the council. So that, along with the obviously the data on people from minority ethnic groups, which is really low as well, in terms of, you know, are there steps being put in place to try and either make operations more accessible to people or to encourage more people from the protected groups into the council?
I'll maybe just answer a question on the data initially, and then maybe ask somebody from HR to come and speak about some of the recruitment work that's ongoing. But it's just to point out that the data that's in here for employees is provided on a voluntary basis. The employees are not required to provide that information. It's good to see an increase in employees feeling comfortable that they are reporting that, but it is provided on a voluntary basis. But we asked Chris to say a wee bit more about recruitment.
Thanks, Councillor. We obviously are a disability confident employer, and we have the guaranteed interview scheme for those who apply and meet the essential criteria. We are in the process of reviewing our recruitment and selection process, and I think that's something we need to embed in how we can attract candidates. I think there are possibly some employees who may have a disability but don't record it, so we probably are under-reporting in some areas, and some people may class a disability as not a disability that they have. But yeah, we'll certainly be looking at as part of the review process, and we do ask staff to self-declare through the iTrend system as well.
I understand that a lot of people don't want to disclose, and they don't have to nowadays either, whereas before they had to. But I was just thinking, in the view of the fact, if somebody has got a protected characteristic and they need reasonable adjustments, if they're not picked up, then they don't have that opportunity to access those reasonable adjustments. Is that correct?
So in terms of, we explore that from the very outset of the application process in terms of any adjustment that may need to be done as part of an interview process. We also have, as part of the pre-medical, where we pick up any adjustments that need for the individual to be able to undertake the role, and we use occupational health. So we are obviously putting a lot of reasonable adjustments in place where we are enabled to support staff to come into employment or remain in employment.
Any further questions? No, okay, thanks, Sinead. Councillor Forsyth, move the paper.
Thanks, Convener. The plan sets out how we as a council will continue to meet our legal duties under the Equality Act 2010, but more importantly, how we will make Clackmannanshire a fairer and more inclusive place to work. The outcomes are shaped by local realities. Our population has grown by just over 8% since 2001, but the number of residents aged over 65 has risen by 57%. We now have more than 6,700 lone parent households, and 1 in 4 people in Clackmannanshire live with a disability that affects their daily life. Within our own workforce of 2,700 employees, women make up 3/4 of the staff. And while our gender pay gap has narrowed to just 1.5%, we know that we can go further. In response, we've agreed 4 outcomes for the next 4 years, and these are to be an inclusive employer where all staff feel valued and supported, to build knowledge and capacity so equality and human rights shape every decision we make, to embed a human rights ethos tackling discrimination and promoting fairness, and to ensure accessible services so no one faces barriers in Clackmannanshire. These will be delivered through concrete actions, for example, refreshing our BSL and Gallup plans, adopting a children's rights ethos in our schools, ensuring access information and improving how we collect and publish equalities data. This is about more than just complying with the legislation. It's about making sure that equality, diversity and human rights are lived realities for people here in Clackmannanshire. So we've asked that Council agrees these refreshed outcomes and priority actions and notes the requirement to publish them on the Council's website.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton, second.
Thank you. I'm happy to second the recommendations in this report. Refreshed equality outcomes for 25 to 29 clearly support the Council's ongoing commitment to inclusion, fairness and meeting our legal duties under the Equality Act. Engagement work, data review and alignment with wider strategies make this a well-considered approach. I fully support the approval and publication of these outcomes and priority actions.
Thank you. It was now open for debate. Anybody wish to debate? Nope. Okay, so the paper asks us to note the report and to agree the quality outcomes and priority actions that are set out in the report and to note the requirement to publish the Council's website. We're happy to approve. Thank you. Just to note that Councillor McCluckie has now joined us online, I think, and Councillor Earl has indicated he's had to leave the meeting. I'm not sure if he's passed that on to you or not, but he's had to leave during the recess. Okay, item 10 is a place-based investment programme update. Kevin's going to take us through that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members. The paper in front of you here is an update on our activity around the investment programme, as well as outlining the plan for the allocation for 25-26. You will see in paragraph 3.5 of the report that the place-based investment fund has a number of objectives it hopes to achieve through the funding received by Scottish Government to take this programme forward. The subsequent paragraphs outline the work that we have done over the years in this, and it has been a multi-year programme funded by Scottish Government. A lot of that money was front-loaded. Recognising that, as outlined in 3.9, we had a reduced amount in 24-25 allocation. But for this year, as outlined in 3.10, the Council has been allocated £310,000, which will be issued to us in 2 tranches, as outlined in that paragraph, that we're expecting to allocate. Section 4 of the report outlines that how we have approached the allocation of this, and we have targeted and prioritised those groups who were progressing into community asset transfer. And namely the group taken forward with Sauchie Hall and the Benwick Centre. We approached these groups and sought bids in terms of work that is in line with the objectives of the programme. The bids came in to the sum of £355,000, which was over our allocation of 310. And the breakdown of the bids are within Appendix A of the report. The proposal by officers is that we take a percentage reduction in each of the allocations to those groups, as outlined in the table in paragraph 5.3, which would see the allocation of just over £210,000 to Sauchie Hall and just over £90,000 to the Tillicree Coast Norton and Dedenside Community Development Trust. Members, the report is here for your consideration, and I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Questions, Councillor Harrison, before Councillor Quinn?
Thanks, Convener. Kevin, just so that there is a shortfall between what we have been granted by the Scottish Government and what the two organisations are looking for it. I know we might not be able to give them financially assistance to bridge that gap, but what other assistance have we been helping them with, trying to find other grant awards that they can put towards that?
Chair, thank you, Councillor Harrison. In terms of support to groups, we have been signposting them to potentially other funding sources, and we will work with them to see if there's any value engineering that can be done in terms of the projects as well. So there's ongoing dialogue with both groups in terms of what potential additional assistance and signposting that we are able to give each of these groups.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn.
Thanks, Convener. Just an appendix one, I'm wondering why Elizabeth Sockey has a contingency, but the other one has no contingency. Is that due to, is there more variability potentially in the nature of those works, or is there another reason for that?
Thanks, Councillor Quinn. The bids themselves have been developed by the groups in terms of how they believe is best fit for them in going forward. In terms of the Tillicotry, in terms of the allocations, I believe they will include elements of contingency within each of those aspects, whereas the Soccer Hall have explicitly planned how they plan to take that forward. So it's been led by the group themselves.
Okay, great, thanks. So they've separated their contingency rather than working on that makes sense to me because they've done it themselves. Yeah, all the stuff's usually good. Are you able to tell me, just more curiosity, right? What does the green heating system consist of? What type of green heating is that? Thanks.
That's great, Councillor. I'm not going to give you that information, but I'm happy to seek that information and make sure that it's available to you.
Okay, okay.
Vegetable.
Thank you, Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, thanks. Happens, if anything, if the CAT doesn't go ahead, have you put yourself in an awkward position in terms of how the money is being distributed? Want to start again? What I'm concerned, not concerned, I'm asking about the Scottish Government has given this money. Are we passporting it to community operations, or are we free to spend that on council-owned properties as well as keep passporting it through?
There's tight constraints in terms of how we can utilise it, and it's not something that should be utilised in terms of something that's already on our own capital programme of works that we have planned to do. We will work with the groups in terms of that, and I'm really confident in terms of where these organisations are at in terms of their ability to carry this forward.
So if it didn't happen for any reason, does that cause a problem?
If it didn't happen, we would quickly go out. There's other mechanisms for us to be able to reach out to other groups. We may have to go wider than just community asset transfer groups. That's been something that is we have taken forward as a council, but certainly we have flexibility to be able to then work, and we believe we would be able to pivot. As I said, I'm really confident in terms of where both groups will end up in relation to these projects. And the requirement is that the works are commissioned, not necessarily completed by the end of the fiscal year.
So the granting of the money to each of these projects is contingent upon them signing the agreement.
It's aligned to them taking on the community asset transfer, which is nearing completion.
And I take it we can't derive any benefit from that because we're handing them something that's more valuable than it was now today.
Sorry, Councillor, I'm not following that question.
All right, when you're working out the amount to charge for a CAT transaction is based upon the value of the property. This will enhance the value of the property. So, but it's not our money. We can't capitalise on that.
Thanks, Councillor. I think I understand where you're coming from. So the CAT options that both groups are taking for is long-term leases, not outright purchase.
Certainly not at this stage in that sense. But the investment that is being proposed by both groups will enhance those facilities. In terms of the cat option of a lease, the property will still remain Clackmannanshire Council's property. But it will be through a long-term lease of 20+ years.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No, okay, thanks, Kevin. Councillor Harrison to move the paper.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. From 2021, the Scottish Government have committed to providing local authorities with place-based investment funds for the purposes of improving areas within their area. In previous years, the investment fund has been awarded to grants across Clackmannanshire, such as multi-use games area, Oakhill Community Centre and Tullabuddy Community Development Centre, new play equipment at Wimpy Park, pump tracking, others. This year, the council has been awarded £310,000, which is to be allocated in 2 separate grants. This money can only be spent on capital programmes and priorities given to buildings which are in the process of transfer. The 2 deemed to have the most need for funding being Socky Hall and the Bencliffe Centre. These are buildings currently owned by the council, but they are expected to be transferred to community organisations, with the maintenance and repair responsibility also passing when the leases are finalised. The organisations looking after these buildings have gone through an application process and submitted requests for grants, which is more than the grant funding received from the Scottish Government. The awards will then be carried out on a proportional basis to allow the works to be carried out. I would actually like to thank the 2 community organisations that have stepped up and taken control over these buildings and their ongoing commitment to the local areas. This grant award is implementation of the commitments given by this administration to those community groups while the asset transfer process was ongoing. I welcome the paper and the proposals to award these grants to the 2 buildings within the county that allows these to be transferred successfully in their community ownership and also helps with the improvements and upgrades that will see these facilities continue to be used by local communities for many years to come.
Thank you. Councillor McTaggart to second the paper.
Thanks, Convener. Just really to confirm my agreement with everything that Councillor Harrison has said, but also to say that I very much look forward to Socky Hall thriving now, because it was at risk, and I'm thankful that we've found a solution that's brought the community together to ensure the future of that building, and I'm sure this place-based investment fund will help to secure that. Thanks, Convener.
Okay, thank you. It was open to debate. Mr. Debate. Councillor Forson.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's just to say that council made a commitment to support community asset transfers where possible, using things like place-based investment funds, and the paper today sets out exactly how we're doing that. So I hope that goes a long way to building some trust back up between communities who may have felt a bit let down. I think, just to echo on what Councillor Harrison said, the members of the community have come forward and taken on a community asset transfer is not without its challenges, and I'm hoping that this funding will go some way to supporting that, and look forward to seeing how we can support community asset transfers across Clackmannanshire as a whole moving forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other contributions to the debate? Do you need the opportunity to sum up? Oh, sorry, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I'm glad to see that things are planning out with both areas. I know, Socky holds the hat, Socky has been for many, many years. So yeah, glad that things are moving forward.
Okay, thank you. Any other contributions? Councillor Harrison, do you need the opportunity to sum up? No. Okay, so the paper recommends that council approve the allocation of the place-based investment fund 25-26 for projects to support the improvement of Socky Hall and the Bencliffe Centre in line with sections 5.2 and 5.3 of the report. I'll be happy to approve. Thank you. Item 11 is the Plan and Enforcement Charter Update 2025. Collins, we take a see that, thank you.
Afternoon, councillors.
Councillors, it's a statutory duty for a council to publish an up-to-date planning enforcement charter, and the version before you today is an update of the previous one, which dates from 2022. Enforcement is one of the most complex areas of the planning system, but it does become necessary when developers, and that includes householders, undertake work without planning permission or do not adhere to the permission that they have. The charter before you today for consideration explains how planning enforcement works, the role of the planning authority, and the role of other services, including roads, environmental health, and the police, and they sometimes have weightier powers depending on the nature of the breach. The updated charter aims to make the process clearer by outlining how planning officers investigate alleged breaches, how we prioritise cases by categorising them into significant harm, and that would include unauthorised work to listed buildings or damage to protected trees, medium harm, where a breach causes harm to a locality and adjacent residents, and low harm, where the impact on the locality is not considered to be serious. The prioritisation process is set out in pages 5 and 6 of your new charter. In addition, pages 7 and 8 of the new charter set out the service standards which we planners aim to meet when alleged breaches are reported to us. And then pages 9 and 10 sets out the toolkit of possible enforcement actions. Members, this charter is intended to be a useful tool and a background document to help officers and members explain to residents what we do and why. It should hopefully be of help to all members when an enforcement issue is raised by a local constituent. Members, planning enforcement is a complex area and in many cases a very blunt instrument. Members understandably become frustrated when progress is slow, when the conclusion of a case is that taking action is not in the public interest, or the actions have been exhausted. Please believe me when I say that this frustration is fully shared by your officers. Nevertheless, it is hoped that the updated charter will improve understanding and help make the process somewhat clearer for everybody involved. Meantime, all members should feel free to contact planning officers on individual enforcement cases, where we will do our very best to help you, keep you informed of progress, and so you in turn can advise your constituents. In conclusion, I hope that following the debate, you will feel confident to approve the new enforcement charter today. I'm happy to answer questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. Do we have any questions on the paper? Councillor Rennie?
Interested in the one about replacement tree notice. So how would a householder know if their tree was protected? I know this is a silly question, but I just was looking at it and I thought, I wouldn't know if there was a tree in my property that was protected. How do they know?
Council keep a register, so they contact us and we'll be able to inform them.
Sorry. They would have to check with council first before they took a tree down. Right, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Coy.
Thanks. Ollie, this is obviously quite an important document going forward in many ways. I'm just keen to know that it would be available to members of the public who may be looking at the situation, think that's a planning offence, or even people who are making a planning application. Where will they be able to access this report, this charter?
Thanks, Councillor. It'll be on the website, and assuming members approve it today, maybe look to do a little bit of publicity, drawing the public and members' attention to the fact that we have a new updated document. And obviously, I hope that you yourselves will inform your constituents when you're approached about planning matters, because you're an important part of the process too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law.
My understanding is that I think it's the Forest, well, it's not the Forest Commission now because it's changed its name. I can't remember what it's called, but Forest Scotland, that there's a website that you can go on and actually see the tree protection orders that are there. Do you agree?
I believe they have some information. I couldn't tell you that they have information on all the trees, but I'll take that away, Councillor, and check that out. So thanks for that information.
Councillor Lee?
Thanks, Chair. Just really looking to understand if we've now got a full complement of staff in planning and building matters, because I was aware also at the end of last year through to, I think it was about May, we really struggled to distill some of the duties in that department due to the levels of sort of staffing. So I'm just looking to see if that's been rectified as an issue.
Apologies, councillor, I was distracted there. I didn't hear the beginning of your question.
It was just around staffing in the planning department. I was aware that also the tail end of last year and the majority of the early part of this year, there was a lot of things that were actually put on hold and unable to be actioned, mainly due to staffing issues. So I'm just wondering if that's been rectified now. We're at a full complement of staff.
Thank you, councillor. Yeah, I'm very pleased to say that we have we've secured the additional resource. Pauline's part of that in terms of some interim support, agency support, Pauline and another colleague. And we successfully recruited to principal planner yesterday. We've received additional resources in from the National Planning Hub as well, which has allowed us then to fill the principal planner for policy role. Actually, that member of staff will be joining us next week, Monday, in terms of taking forward work around the NDP. And so therefore the team is building, starting to progress, and we're starting to see quite considerable movement in terms of policy development, but also in terms of through the various cases. So I'm really pleased to say that at this moment we're in a much better position than we were previously, as you've referenced.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Do you have any further questions? No. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Well done in your first paper to council. Councillor Coyne to move the paper.
Thanks, Convener. This paper is one of the early steps showing the resuscitation of the planning department. As you've heard, it's a refresh of the 2022 version done under the aegis of my predecessor, the omnipresent provost of this parish, Councillor Balsillie. It's important for the sake of applicants and the general public to be clear about the responsibilities of applicants and the recourse available to the public should there be planning infringements. It will save money, time and grief if the system is fully understood and adhered to, and this charter document lays out very clearly what the access to reparation is and what the repercussions of planning offences are. So for all of these reasons, I am very happy to propose this paper.
Thank you. Councillor Keogh to second.
Just formally second it. Formally.
Okay, thank you. The paper's now open to debate. Do wish to debate the paper? Councillor Law.
Just to say, I think it's Environmental Scotland's website rather than the Scottish Forest Commission or whatever it's called. I can't remember, that you can find out where tree protection orders are. Handy to know for people.
Thank you. Any other contributions to the debate? No. I'll be happy to approve the paper. Thank you. Item 12 is the pollinator strategy for 24 to 29. Kevin's going to take us through it.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. The report before you is outlining our pollinator strategy for 24 to 29. The report highlights a number of positive inroads that have been made across services in delivering the goals and targets in relation to the strategy and seeking approval. You'll see in paragraph 3.3, this pollinator strategy aligns with the aims and objectives of the Council's net zero targets and recognises nature's capacity for emissions absorption and biodiversity pivotal roles in our climate resilience. This 5-year strategy sets out the council's commitment. Its strategy focuses on 5 key objectives as outlined in paragraph 4.1. It does, as I've said, align with those broader sustainable and net zero goals. And it's planned to be, its accompanying action plan plans to be a dynamic, evolving framework to take recognition of this growing area, but also recognising some of the financial constraints that we operate within as well, looking to see how we work with others in this sphere. Part in section 5 of the report outlines the various different considerations that have been incorporated within it, and I would like to highlight in paragraph 5.10 the steps that have been taken to support this pollinator strategy. There has also been a range of engagement sessions to support the development of this, as highlighted in section 6 of the report. And members, this strategy establishes a roadmap for the council and its partners to undertake actions benefiting pollinators, and whilst simultaneously addressing the broader objectives such as halting biodiversity loss and advancing towards a zero carbon economy. I'm happy to take questions in relation to the paper in front of members. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Do you have any questions, Councillor Quint, followed by Councillor Rennie?
Thank you. A couple of quick questions. Why are we approving a draft strategy with a 5-year plan that ends in 4 years and start of a year?
Thanks, Councillor. I appreciate the strategy starts 2024. This work's been ongoing for this, and actually some of the additional development work that we needed to put in place within the team there is why it's came at this stage. So I appreciate the time period in which it covers and predates this meeting, but it's in terms of the continuity of work is the reason why. Other than that, but we have reported in terms of some of the work that's getting taken place, and is in line with those principles. Again, is backed up by our broader strategic work about climate change.
Excellent. No, thanks very much. I'm just asking why it seemed a bit off. Just one question. One more question I'd like to ask then. So there could be metrics, and there's obviously actions and things here. Is there any kind of mechanism to report back to council? Will there be any updates, or will it go through audit and scrutiny or anything else so that we can kind of scrutinise and question the performance and how it's going? Thanks.
So thank you for that question, Councillor. There's multiple ways in which there will be scrutiny of our work. One, through the Climate Emergency Board, is one of those mechanisms which we have elected member representation chaired by Councillor Harrison as spokesperson. As one of the vehicles, we will report elements of these indicators through our place business plan and the other performance very much through audit and scrutiny, and there will be continuous updates to council in relation to the work that we undertake under this strategy aligned to our climate change strategy as well.
Excellent.
Thank you. Councillor Rennie, to be followed by Councillor Coyne.
Just a couple of quick questions. So I noticed actually, as I completed it, actually there was a document that went out online to feedback. I know you were saying about community consultation. I was wondering if there was a good return from that and what sort of outcomes came from it.
Thanks, Councillor. I would say that there's been a range of different feedback that has informed this process. I would love it to have been a lot more feedback in that sense. I think what we have started to see in terms of our approach in this is thinking differently about how we engage, rather than the designated topic as such as being in officers being out and about at community events and featuring that engagement. But we have received a number of engagements for a number of stakeholders in terms of our work. That has been fed back and incorporated into the report itself. So we have taken board the feedback that we've received.
Just, I mean, I'm delighted to see the wildflower areas that are going across Clackmannanshire at the moment. They're lovely to see. And I just wondered if there was plans to widen that work out.
Thank you, Councillor. There is plans to expand that. That is part of the action plans that we hope to take forward. I would also hope to try and improve in terms of how we communicate and explain the wildflower planting in terms of it is great whilst it's blooming, but we know that it also needs maintenance, and at times that doesn't always look as great as when it's in bloom. And it's just how we work with our communities to navigate that communication and get that across, and so that they understand what's behind it. It's not that it's neglected, actually, it's part of its natural process in that sense, but we do plan to expand on that work as part of our actions here within the strategy.
It's a really good point when it's dying away. So, I mean, I think, I mean, I'm sure you'll be doing work with schools in terms of saying how they repollinate themselves and like they drop their seeds and all that kind of thing. So you're doing that kind of work, yeah.
Thanks, Councillor. Yes, there's quite a really proactive and positive engagement with our schools, working alongside education colleagues in terms of that. Even education programmes being put forward and suggestions coming back from our pupils and potential ideas of how we can progress this work. Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Coyne, to be followed by Councillor McTaggart.
Thanks, Convener. Kevin, a prickly one, first of all, follow up to Councillor Quinn's question. Why were we asked to approve a strategy in 2025 that we didn't have to approve in 2024? Oh, interesting, but it didn't behave.
Thanks, Councillor. I appreciate that, and it is absolutely timing. There'll be numerous reports we will bring forward to Council that will be predated in that sense. So it's not that it's unusual, it's just not ideal in that sense. I think what it does do is it captures and recognises the work that is taking place during that period that is absolutely connecting to the key priorities and actions within the plan. So it does allow us to capture that work that was taking place that partners, including the council, have progressed in terms of the plan. But if council was minded to change it to 2025, then I don't think that would necessarily stop it. It would just mean that there's a whole load of work that may not necessarily be captured.
I'm kind of getting to the point here. Now, I know I'm being a bit difficult at this, but the idea that the council's asked to approve something suggests that it can't move forward unless we approve it. So if you start a camp 18 months ago doing something, spending money, etc., I don't mean you personally, just a general question, doing an activity which requires expenditure, which requires approval, then that may work in planning, retrospective approvals. But I can't see this work here. Where am I missing? What point am I missing?
So, Councillor, in terms of the work that has been progressed as part of the pollinator strategy, that is part of our wider climate change strategy and the objectives that we're trying to take forward, and that has broad commitment from the council. We do report in terms of this work through the Climate Emergency Board in terms of the progress of that aspect. They're taking forward and leading on this work in that sense. Some of this work will also be aligned to other government funding that we, such as Nature Scott monies as well. So in terms of that, there's a whole range of different ways in which governance is in place for the work that we're doing. I think in terms of the agreement of that, it has been a timeline. This is dragged slightly in terms of coming forward to council, and I can only apologise on behalf of the department that sits with officers in that sense, but happy to take back that the sentiment that you raised.
Are you claiming in effect that it was pre-approved?
I'm not saying it was pre-approved. What I'm saying is the work that has been progressed is certainly under the principles in the policy arrangements that are in place for other aspects. This has enhanced it and actually allowing us to put a more structured framework and action plan round about pollinator work.
Okay, you're not going to make any more of it, just making the point in general that the approval's going to mean something. And it doesn't appear to mean much in this instance. That's the point. Okay, down to lighter topics. It says in 5.1 that the total loss of pollinators could cost up to 440 million a year, about 13% of UK income from farming. Somewhere else I read in the paperwork said that figure should be 75%. Am I wrong?
I know that you have an eagle eye for those things, so I wouldn't presume that you're wrong. What I will do is I'll check the discrepancy on that and come back to you.
I mean, I'm not making the point lightly because there's a hell of a difference between 75 and 14. It underlines the case much more strongly if it is 75%. Okay, yeah. I mentioned planning, and we've got in our planning applications process, we ask for contributions towards civic art and things like that. Can we incorporate wilding, wildflower, wild areas, pollinator residences? Can we incorporate that into planning requirements, do you think?
I would need to look at the specifics, but there is an environmental element in terms of the planning process.
Exactly, yeah, 4, 3 and 4, something like that.
Yeah. That would feature into that. Obviously, as I mentioned in the last report, that we are advancing now our LTP in terms of the framework about that. I would expect certainly aspects of what you've just inquired to be incorporated within that work.
Yeah, finally, 5.11, I've got a wee question here, says any results published must be to do with something you've talked about in there. Yeah, it's the sensors have been deployed at a range of sites throughout Clackmannanshire, blah, 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 blah. Just wondering if any results are due out or had come out for those studies.
I know that there has been a great deal of data collected, and we're currently working and linking with partners in terms of getting that information. So I don't have a timeline on specifically when it will be published, but I know that we are engaging in terms of what information we can obtain to incorporate in our reporting as well.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We've got Councillor McTaggart next, before the Councillor Law. I've also got Councillor Martin and Alison to ask questions for. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Kavira. Kevin, in Objective 5, you mention about reducing herbicides. You get the word? Herbicides. Actively reducing herbicides across the county in this policy. However, I'd like to ask, do we use herbicides as a council? Are we trying to reduce anything that might be harmful to the pollinators? Even things like in house and maintenance, if we were using external paint, if we were painting the outside of a building, etc., we'd be looking for products that are pollinator friendly.
You, Chair, and thanks, Councillor McTaggart, for that question. So we do use various different products through a range of our services. They are being explored service by service in terms of what alternatives we have available to us, and also looking at different ways of being able to deal with things. So you just, for example, this week we have had an example of the likes of woodworm, etc., which you can use a product to deal with, but actually there's other ways in which we can manage that situation, and we've used that alternative way. So services are considering in terms of what's the best methodology and what's the safest way in which we can progress some of our work, and recognising that there may well be a place for some of those products. It's just, can we use them sparingly and look at other alternatives that is not necessarily in competition with our objectives here.
Okay. Thanks, Jerry.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Law, to be followed by Councillor Harrison.
Thanks. Totally the strategy. I have a question though, because I think recently there was questions about how like the maintenance of like grass and whatnot in cemeteries. So my question is, because obviously I'm very aware of the constraints on the land services team financially due to decisions we've taken at budget times and also with recruitment. How are we going about it, like for letting the public know about areas that are being wildflowered? But are we also going to, because obviously there is areas that we want to kind of maintain in that kind of classic kind of style of nicely cut and whatnot. Are we going to also, I think maybe, or can we put things up in these areas that, you know, these areas will be maintained? I mean, there's areas that I know that we can't maintain. We just don't have the resources to do that. But I'm just thinking that, you know, as well as kind of letting about pollinator sites, those kind of, just so the public know that this is the area that is being maintained, and also maybe having that conversation with communities, because as we all know that the constraint we have on resources of speaking to, I don't know, community councils, development trusts to say, this is your area, we've only got so much of the budget to maintain your classic style. What areas of your community are you wanting to do that? I just think that's really important to also have that, and as well as our areas where we want to improve our pollinators. Do you agree? I don't know if that's
Thank you so much, Councillor Love, for your question. And I think it follows on for Councillor Benny's point in terms of the wildflowers. That's not for all places. And I absolutely agree with what you're saying in terms of we need a mixed approach in terms of how we undertake our grounds maintenance work. There'll be certain areas where we would be expecting to keep that traditional cut and maintenance regime in place. Those areas where we can allow them to well grow, as well as how we then use wildflower meadow as well. So there's a whole range of a mix. I agree we need to do more in terms of how we educate our communities in terms of the different regimes that we will apply and adopt, and we need to do that alongside our communities through engagement and through discussion. So certainly part of the ask of services within this strategy is to look at how we take that forward and how we improve our communications around about that as well. And land services will have an absolute critical role in terms of some of that work, supported by other colleagues in terms of interactions with some other community groups. This is a whole council strategy, and be seeking all services to get behind it. We will report back to the Climate Emergency Board on an ongoing basis in terms of how we report progress against these actions. But in terms of the point you raised, I think that's a yes.
Councillor Harrison.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, it's just a wee point coming back to Councillor point and Quinn's points about timescales. So Clackmannanshire Council declared a climate emergency in 2021 and we set up a climate emergency board. Raise this as a question. Would it be fair to say, Kevin, that part of that climate emergency board, a lot of these actions were taken as part of the climate emergency board, and now what we're doing is we are formalising a winning strategy?
I agree, Councillor Harrison. All of these elements have came through the Climate Emergency Board is part of that, and certainly what is formulated to the strategy we have today.
And
It's me. Thanks. So this isn't a question, so apologies, Convener. I would encourage the people who have been invited to the climate emergency, please attend the Climate Emergency Board meetings when they come up. Yeah, do you agree?
Thank you, Councillor Harrison. I think we value the contribution across the membership of the Climate Emergency Board, and the more people who contribute to that discussion makes the work enriched further. Thank you.
As a person who's about to move that paper very shortly, Councillor Harrison, I'm sure you could have fitted that in somewhere.
probably.
Is there anybody else that has further questions on the paper? Councillor Quinn.
Thanks, Convener. Page 286, the action plan, objective 1, quite a few of those, and even in objective 2, the times have passed. Kevin, I'm just wondering if those events did take place, March, April, March, April, June, September, did they happen or not?
Thanks, Councillor Quinn. So a number of these points will have happened, but it will run over the period of the strategy as well. So they will progress in that sense. I'm looking at the aspects of it. There has been work in these areas taken forward, yes. Yes. Yeah, yeah. In terms of this work, yeah. So annually, the things, yes, there'll be things that are predated and things that would have been to come the time it right and it would have been planned on. Yeah.
What I was just suggesting to Kevin is my reading of the plan when I'd reviewed it was that the plan is suggesting a cyclical approach to these activities. So what is being noted in the action plan is the periods of each year that they would happen. That was my reading of it.
That's a very fair reading, I think, but I think my question is fair. Take item 2, schools to design signage between March and April. Did it happen? I mean, is this 2024 we're looking at here? Because your plan, your strategy is 2024 dated. So I'm assuming that's 2024.
So there has been design work by schools. Yes, that has taken place.
And the other things that should have happened. All right, the champions, I mean, has that been done as well?
We do have, sorry. We do have champions in place in terms of quality, yes.
And the other things?
I'm confident that they are in place and have been getting progressed.
Okay. Moving now to page 274.
Page 274. It's a question. Are you aware that the version 1, version 2 of the second paragraph in there? It's an editorial point.
Thanks for that, Councillor. I'll have that made.
Is it version 2 we're going with? It sounds more correct to me if you read it.
I believe it would be. I suspect the original first one hasn't been removed. Okay, thank you, Councillor Bosilli.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. It's just a small point. The top of page 280, we've got support the John Muir pollinator way in relation to development of bug life sort of indicators. Should that not really read support the findings from the John Muir pollinator way for Clackmannanshire Path Network or something to that effect?
I believe you're correct there, Councillor.
Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Quinn.
Yeah, let's give you just make you aware. I'd like to make an amendment as possible. Yeah, I would just like to suggest we just amend the date. That's all. Nothing in the plan, everything's great. Just amend the date to 2025 to 2030 rather than 2024 to 2029. I think the points also Councillor Coyne's highlighted, just kind of the principle of it. Don't want to apply it and, kind of retrospectively, kind of be doing things and accept this work undertaken. That doesn't negate any of the work that has been done up to this point. And invariably, anything we approve, any plan going forward, will include work that has already been done within it. So I would just like to suggest that we propose an amendment just to change the date on the strategy so it runs from 2025 to 20. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Quinn. That amendment's competent, and what we need is a seconder for it. Councillor Coyne, do you wish to talk to the amendment?
I've said everything.
The movers. No.
Yeah, I've said everything already. So.
And council happy to accept that amendment? Anybody against the amendment? No, okay. So back to the paper. Any other contributions? Oh, sorry. Still talking to the officer. Apologies. Do we have any other questions for Kevin? No. Thanks, Kevin. Councillor Harrison to move the paper. I think understanding orders, it's appropriate for the mover and the seconder to accept the amendment and move the second to the paper and speed up the process a little bit. So Councillor Harrison to move the paper.
Okay, thanks, Karina. Yeah, the strategy before us today aligns with the national strategy for Scotland that looks to reverse pollinator decline by protecting habitat, raising awareness and monitoring of pollinators. As outlined in the paper, the strategy focuses on 5 key objectives: raising awareness of the importance of pollinators, and I think that comes back to Councillor Rennie's question. It's a very good one. Not everybody agrees that the wildflowering is a fantastic thing to do. I'm sure we know that we've had those kind of comments back. So the raising awareness is a good point. Protecting existing, to prevent further loss, creating new connected habitats, monitoring and tracking pollinator populations to inform adaptive management and contribute to climate resilience. Pollinators are crucial to our local biodiversity and significantly contribute towards making our neighbourhoods, homes and workplaces more attractive to live in and work in. They have a pivotal role to play in our ecosystems, have a significant impact on our local economy in terms of the food and farming, and play a critical role in our health and well-being. Our native pollinators, the bees, the flies, moths, butterflies, wasps and beetles, are vital for the maintenance of our ecosystem's health and for global food security. 75% of crop species, 35% of global crop production and up to 88% of flowering plant species are dependent on insect pollinators to some extent. Nature Scot have identified that our wild pollinators are in trouble and facing pressures such as habitat loss and fragmentation, changes in land use, disease, pesticides and climate change. Clackmannanshire Council's pollinator strategy is about raising awareness of the importance of pollinators and what we can all do to make Clackmannanshire more pollinator friendly, and in the process make our countryside, our gardens, our workplaces and green spaces a haven for nature and human well-being. While moving the paper, I am happy to accept the amendment that has been put forward by Councillor Quinn and Councillor Coyne.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Law to second.
I don't think I can articulate it better than that I did earlier in the pollinator strategy, but that is my sentence. Yeah, I welcome this. I think it's really good. I think we have a lot of work to do in the education department in regards to this, because I think people see, especially Clackmannanshire, oh look, it looks green, oh there's trees, but that doesn't mean that we've got a good biodiversity. You know, you can't just have the same trees or just the same flowers. There needs to have that biodiversity, and it has to, you know, encourage pollinators. I mean, we've had some really good feedback in regards to the Alva to Main Street active travel route and the biodiversity corridor that was put in there. It looked really amazing during the summer with all the kind of different flowers and whatnot. So yeah, I'm just really happy to support this.
Okay, thank you. The paper's open for further debate. Anybody wish to debate? Councillor Quinn.
Thank you. I'd just like to add my woohoo to this as well. So, because I remember the first council meeting after the election that you know, I brought the motion about pollinator strategy because it was a wee bit of a gap we had, and I was pleased to see now that this has all been developed and work started and all this kind of stuff. So just want to thank all the officers, everyone involved in this. It's fantastic. Pleased to see things like, you know, the involvement a lot with schools and with younger people. Pleased to see all the education around it as well, because it's all very well doing stuff, but if we're not bringing the public along, they'll just They won't be on board with it and it'll make life difficult. So pleased to see the amount of education that's going into it, let's say particularly around the young people, because Councillor Harrison's already outlined all the kind of benefits. We know the benefits of this. It's a huge benefit. It's really important that we take it seriously, and really pleased to see this comprehensive plan with there's a lot of work going on. It'll be ongoing. I'm looking forward in the future to getting the updates to see how this progresses and how well it's received. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Forward to see how Julian and Mel captured about who's in the minutes. Any other contributions to the debate? No. Councillor Harrison, do you want an opportunity to sum up? Based on the amended suggestion put forward by Councillor Kerr, we're happy to approve that paper. Okay, thank you. Item 13, the climate change strategy. Jens Kevin's going to take us through it.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. The report currently provides details of positive steps that be taken towards meeting the objectives for the climate strategy. A summary of the climate change strategy is produced in Appendix D of this report. Members, there has been a full strategic environment assessment done alongside this piece of work, as well as public engagement. The climate change strategy is structured around 6 key themes: energy, heat and buildings, low carbon transport, waste recycling and circular economy, and biodiversity, carbon storage and agriculture, adaptation planning and organisational capacity, economic development and sustainable procurement. Members, in section 4 of the report looks at considerations that have been incorporated as part of this work, which also includes the legally binding targets that have been placed on public bodies in relation to our greenhouse gas emissions and the work towards net zero, which also includes our annual public bodies climate change duties reporting. And paragraph 4.3 outlines the key expectations within the legislation that we are held responsible to. Paragraph 4.4 looks at the additional climate change targets that have been applied to public bodies, including net zero, zero direct emissions by 2045, the latest, including interim targets to monitor progress, to look at no biodegradable municipal waste to landfill by December 31st, 2025. And we'd say that certainly in that one we are ahead of schedule in terms of where we are at. But in terms of paragraph 5, talks about our climate change action and the work that we have undertaken to progress some of this work going forward. Section 6 of the report outlines that the areas where we have the greatest carbon footprint, which includes our buildings and operations, our waste operation, including domestic household waste, our use of council and staff vehicles, and also that area around about procurement of goods. I want to highlight to Council today just the slight typo in 6.2, where it talks about the public bodies climate change duty. Next report is due by the 30th of November 2025, not 2022. In that sense, there is a substantial amount of work being undertaken within the county in relation to our work addressing some of these themes. Section 7 of this report goes in across each of the theme headings of the work that is underway and supportive of the strategy. It shows that we are taking this serious. We have committed behind us, and we're trying to incorporate this work into other developments we are taking part. So therefore, trying to incorporate into our existing work and not necessarily creating lots of additional effort across our workforce, our partners, etc. Members, attached within the report is the climate change strategy for your consideration. Happy to take questions.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Do we have any questions, Kevin? Councillor Curran?
Thanks, Kevin. strategic environmental assessment, who actually carried that out?
It was undertaken by a member of council staff who was qualified in that area, in that sense that actually saved us quite considerable time and money by undertaking it in-house in terms of that member of staff within the energy and sustainability team.
Thanks. In the section that deals with that 3.5.3, there's a link to another website which I went to and had a wander through that. And it came up, it had some questions. It was to assist consultees in providing focused feedback, etc., etc. I just thought I'd pick out a couple of the questions just to see if you feel they were satisfactorily answered. Do you agree with the environmental evaluation of the objectives, priorities, supporting plans and major projects? That's one. The other one is, are the proposed mitigation measures sufficient to address potential negative impacts? That's the really one, that's the one I want to focus on, because I mean, I'm a bit of a drag anchor when it comes to this net zero stuff, because I worry about the cost of it, the timing and the cost. It's a great objective, but it's how we get there, how fast we get there, and what the cost en route is. So my concern would be about the potential negative impacts, whether they're financial or manpower or whatever they are. Have we looked at the downsides of carrying down this route?
Thanks very much, Councillor Coyne. In terms of the question, I think it's a really interesting one in terms of where it goes. I think if we don't take action in a number of these areas, it is potential to actually be much more expensive in a range of areas. It does require us to invest in certain aspects of it. Ultimately, we'll be looking at a best value approach as well as in some of that work and ensuring that that it is one affordable and will reap benefits back to the work that we're doing. So I think it's undeniable that there is a climate emergency. There is work that we collectively need to do, but we are also realistic in terms of what we need to try and achieve and be flexible enough to change in terms of our ambitions and a range of what's affordable, what's achievable in that sense. So I think it needs to be dynamic in that approach, but I do recognise that if we don't take action in certain areas here, it will not only impact us fiscally, but also other social impacts. We're seeing massive differences in terms of our weather and how that has impact on the work we do as well and the response that we need to put in place. What efforts we can do to make a difference, I think overall will have a benefit.
Thanks. I'm glad to get the reassurance that you are using a rear view mirror as well as you charge forward. That's great. Thanks. That's for the moment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lee.
Thanks, Chair. Sure, I'll try to figure out how to put this into a question, but between 2013, 2014 to 2022, 23 and 6.3, it's suggested that we've almost halved our carbon footprint, which is a really good achievement. I'm just wondering, is the overall achievement to get that figure to zero, or is there a figure that, carbon dioxide will continue to be generated through natural sources or man-made sources, which can then be offset by carbon positive initiatives and technology? Is there a figure that we're aiming for? Because I think at the moment it's sat around 5,136 as of 23. Is there a set figure we're aiming for here?
Thank you, Councillor. There is a target in place. I'm sorry, I can't give you the exact figure, but you're right in saying that it won't get to zero because it is about we will naturally have emissions in that sense, but it's also what other actions can we take to counteract those emissions. Some of that's in terms of the work that we're doing in terms of tree planting, some of the work, the pollinator work that we're talking through, all contributes to negating some of those emissions as well. So it's trying to find that balance in terms of the work that we're progressing in this. There's a target. I'll get the exact figure to you.
Okay, sure.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Law.
Just picking up on a couple of points there. Councillor Lee's point about that kind of big drop, my understanding is that is due to how our electricity is produced. That was kind of one of the biggest factors on how that is done. Do you agree?
Thank you, Councillor Law. That is certainly one of the aspects, and other aspects in how we're dealing with our waste by changing from landfill to energy from waste disposal is another major provider. Also, in terms as we reduce our council asset portfolio, and that also contributes to it. So there's a number of factors, but the one you've highlighted is definitely one of them that is contributing to that drop as well.
And then just Councillor Coyne's point, I'm just thinking of the energy sustainability team, because my understanding is if a lot of the money that they've brought in, if they didn't do that, the knock-on cost effect for residents within Clackmannanshire would be really high in regards to kind of heating their home. And when they are looking at it, especially when we think about heat pumps, they do look at that to see whether that would then, because some properties it wouldn't work, and that could put them into fuel poverty if they move to that source. That is one thing that we are looking. So it isn't that we're just in this kind of blanket approach. The teams are looking at the cost effectiveness of kind of reaching those targets. Do you agree?
I do agree, Councillor Law, in the work that's undertaken by the Energy and Sustainability team in terms of attracting inward investment and the monies available from government schemes, etc., to support families in terms of potential PV cells and gas heat pumps, all contributing to lowering the cost for our households and families, and also some of the work that your own housing department are progressing in this area as well, which is seen as a cross-council work to try and address some of those issues, all contribute to our climate change response, but also some of the other priorities that we have, like reducing poverty as well, and providing good quality homes. All of those key priorities is undertaken, but also through a climate change lens.
Do we have any other questions? Councillor Coyne?
Thanks, Convener. Kevin, in the action plan Appendix B, I just counted 36 short-term objectives. That sounds a lot to me, but it may be that you feel adequately resourced for that. How confident are you that you are adequately resourced for all 36?
Thanks, Councillor Coyne. The 36 actions have been worked alongside council services and partners. Certainly work that people are progressing towards, but I do come back to that point that I made one of your earlier questions, that we need to be flexible and adaptable and be able to pivot depending on changes in funding, etc., that we've done. And that needs to make sure that we are reporting timelessly and regularly back to the Climate Emergency Board to show any adaptations, and obviously come back to council if there are any significant major changes in that. But we are very much aware that we are being ambitious here. We've tried to incorporate it into other works that has been done with other priorities that the council is taking forward, to try and maximise the potential that we can get. Again, it's taking that climate emergency lens approach to the work that we're taking forward. So services have contributed, put these actions in, is work that they would hope to take forward and will certainly be working towards trying to achieve in that sense. So yeah, we will adapt, however, if things and circumstances change.
So, in a word, you're not over-promising.
I think they're being ambitious, but with the ability to be realistic.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thanks, Kevin. Councillor Harrison to move the paper.
Thanks, Convener. Yeah, I'll start off by thanking the environment team for both this paper and the pollinator strategy paper. A huge amount of work has gone into both of those. I'm going to pick up on Councillor Coyne's point that he just made there about do we have the resources? I would suggest that number-wise, we would always like more, but I think ability-wise and the quality of work that that team does, I think we have absolutely got the resources there. They do some absolutely fantastic work. And since I took over the portfolio, I've got a meeting with them tomorrow as well. And every time they tell me about stuff that they've been doing, I'm amazed about the positive impact that they are having Clackmannanshire wide with what they do. So I'd like to thank them for the work that they've put in for these last two papers. So back to this paper then, global vulnerability on climate change. There are more than 3.3 billion people worldwide living in highly vulnerable areas to climate change. The 10 hottest years on record have been since 1997, showing that we are having a global warming impact on the earth. And we are seeing much more extreme weather events, increased flash floods, heat waves and powerful storms. You may not be aware, but actually the west of Scotland in some areas have got water shortages. Might find that hard to believe in Scotland because of the rain we get, but the big problem is they're getting long periods of dry weather followed by heavy downfalls where they actually don't catch the rain that's falling. So there is a need for action. Immediate and sustained climate action is essential to mitigate risks and adapt effectively. The Council developed a climate emergency action plan based on insights from local community forums. And since 2022, 86 residents have been engaged to ensure an inclusive and equitable low-carbon transition. The Council do align decisions and budgets and planning processes with climate change objectives. The Council aims to achieve net zero emissions by 2040, advancing the original 2045 targets to act faster than climate change. All decisions should take into cognizance the climate change impact. Embedding the climate change considerations into governance aims to build resilience and sustainability for our future within Clackmannanshire. We have gone, in fact, it was Councillor Watt was leading on it, a number of sessions throughout the county. There was school children, local residents and businesses attended, and that has informed the strategy that we're bringing forward. The benefits of this is improved air quality, cost reduction and efficiency, circular economy principles, economic and health benefits, inclusive stakeholder engagement, and it does support climate initiatives. So yeah, I'm happy to move this paper.
Thank you. Councillor Lottie, second.
Thanks. As a previous policy holder in this area, I work significantly with the team, and I'd just like to thank them, as Councillor Harrison has done, with their help in producing this, especially Nurjana, who's no longer here, who really put in some amazing work to get the strategic environmental assessment done. It did save us a lot of time and a lot of money having her expertise. So thank her for that. I think it's quite funny actually when we're during the break. I actually got a floodline alert because there's a flood warning for the health foods. These become a lot regular. That's the thing that we seem to think that sometimes that climate change isn't affecting us, but it is. So there'll be flood groups within the health foods that will be on alert this weekend to try and protect the towns that they cover. The work here that you see, as we've talked about housing, there's transport, we've already talked about that. You know, even if you don't believe in climate change, the work that's getting done with this will benefit everybody within Clackmannanshire, making it following our priorities, making it a brilliant place to grow up in. So I just want to, again, thank the team for it. And another woohoo, I'm glad this is finally on the agenda. We're getting it through the council. So happy to support. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. The paper is now open for debate. Anyone wish to debate any further? No? Okay. Are you happy to approve the paper? Thank you. Colleagues, it's going after 1 o'clock, so I'm going to break for lunch now. Come back for 1:45. Thank you.